Alright, in this video we're going to make sure that this scene goes into our next one, and what we're going to do is we're going to create an empty object, create an empty, oops, I created it under the canvas. I just want to create an empty in the scene space. I'm going to zero that out because I zero out all of my empty objects, and I'm going to call this a scene manager. And we're going to do a little script that is going to move to our next screen. So I'm going to add a component. I'm going to do what's called scene management. I don't want to call it scene manager because that's actually what that's Unity's library, and it gets a little confusing. So I'm going to create and add scene management. And double click so that we can open up Visual Studio. I'm going to make sure that the font is large enough for you guys. Drag this over here. Large font. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to be using Unity Engine scene management. So that's sort of a library that we get a scene management, and the scene manager is what we'll call to sort of be able to change the different scenes. So I don't need either of these, start or update. What I do need is a public function that's going to go to next scene. So we'll just call it next scene and set it up like that. I want to make sure that's formatted how I like it. And so if we do scene manager and we want to load the next scene, so if I hit L, then I can complete with the load scene. And what I want to do is I want to get whatever our index is for this current scene. So I can do a get, let's see what scene build index. So that's nice. So we can find whatever our active scene is. Actually, that's not right. It's we do scene manager again, and we get active scene. So this is going to get the scene that we're currently on. So we can call this function later if we want to load a next scene, if ever we do. And then we want to load the next one. So whatever our active scene is, we want to get our build index from that, and then we want to add that by 1. And now our scene manager is doing the work for us. So we can load a scene, whatever our active scene is, and we get what our build index is, and we add that by 1. What we're going to do now is we're going to make sure that in our build settings we actually have scenes to move between. So if we add the open scene, then our top menu will be our first scene in our build, which is exactly how we want it. We want to create a new scene so that we can I want to make sure that this first I'm going to organize and make sure that my my scripts are being put in our scripts folder. And in our scripts folder, yeah, that's fine. If I go back to this, it's going to be angry because I moved it, and I'm going to reload. And then I'm just going to go to scripts and then open that again. All right, I just want to keep organized. So yeah, we're going to create a new scene. We'll go to scene folder. We can do create scene, and we'll say main game. Call that the main game scene. Double click on that, and we'll go to our build settings, and we'll add our open scene. So now we have 2 different scenes to swap between. Now that we have a function that's going to load our next scene, how are we going to call the function? What's really nice with working with Unity UI is that you can you can call public functions just using the user interface elements themselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a button. And you can sort of see it small right here. I don't need the text, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. And so just have the button here. What's nice, maybe I can zero this out so it's like in the center. What's nice is that with the button here, it already has this capability of checking. We don't have to check for a click or any sort of input unless it's a different sort of input than just a regular click the button input. So on click we can do something, and so if I hit plus here, I can drag an object. So I'm going to drag my scene manager, and then if I do that, we can access several different sort of components of the game manager. So if I want to like scale it up, I could do that. If like get the transform and then change the like position or something like that. Change like the parenting and that sort of stuff. We can also do different things like set it active or inactive. That's kind of nice. But we'll take the script that it's attached to, scene management, and our public function that we just created called next scene. And we're going to, so on this button click, it should load up the next level. So my scale is super huge. I'm gonna go back down. So now when I click this, hopefully it calls, yep, and now we've loaded the next scene. But what I want it to happen is I want it, if we touch it anywhere on the screen, I want it to load the next next scene. So this button, I'm going to do the same thing as sort of our text. I'm going to zero out our height and our width, and I'm going to set the anchors to scale through the entire thing. Actually, I wonder if it doesn't really work with presets. Yeah, it's a little annoying. So this button is useful, but if we're using presets, it doesn't change how this is calculated. So that's kind of annoying. But I'm going to click this. I'm not really manipulating the anchors anymore. I'm just sort of zeroing this all out. So now our button takes up the entire screen, but I don't want it to be visible. I want to hit it and not have it cover everything. So what I'm going to do is I can it needs the image to be able to work. So if I take the image out and I click, nothing is going to happen. But what I can do is I can keep the image and then have the opacity of the image be, I think it'll work if it's all the way 0. So sometimes, I think before you needed it to at least have a value of like 1, but I think it'll work if it's all the way 0. Yeah, so loaded our next scene, so that's great. So that's sort of a trick. Now I can touch anywhere on the screen. I don't even have to see the button, and it'll load the next scene. Great, so in the next video, we'll start working on our main game.